Beatitudes campers, we're so excited that you could join us again for another week of our Beatitudes study. We are going to talk today about blessed are the pure in heart. What on earth does that mean? Well, before we dive into it, why don't we play a game? much for playing and singing alongside of us. We miss getting to see you guys in person, but we're so excited that we get to do this across digital time and space.
Today's Beatitude is blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. So when you take that at face value, it might not make a whole lot of sense, but think about it like this. When God has invited us to be part of His family and part of His community, and that is something that nothing you can do can take that away, right? But sometimes we put up walls so that we can't hear that invitation. Those walls can be things like being on your phone too much, or maybe watching TV, maybe something like being angry all the time. And when you have these things, they like coat your heart, and you can't hear God, you can't feel God as well as you should be able to. So for me, something like that might be being on my phone a little bit too much. When I'm on my phone, I'm not paying attention to the people around me, and then I can't help out the way I should be able to. But it doesn't always have to be something that you're doing that you shouldn't be doing. Sometimes it can be not doing something where you could be doing something, like helping, or even just not listening or paying attention to ways that you can help your family. Like, can you help your mom make supper? What if you did your chores before people asked you to do them?
Your parents would freak out.
It's a good Christmas gift, by the way. Let's listen to what our friend Douglas has to say about this.
Are you letting stuff come between you and God? Hey guys, it's me again, Douglas, and today, we're continuing in our series on the Beatitudes, and the one we're talking about today is found in Matthew chapter 5, verse 8, which says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." Now, pure means like clean, so blessed are the pure in heart means blessed are those who keep their hearts clean, the people who don't fill their hearts with nasty stuff. Because the more nasty stuff you've got in your heart, the harder it is to hear God, the harder it is to feel God. The truth is that we all sin. But when you accept the free gift of salvation, when it comes to eternal life with God, it's Jesus' purity that counts. All of us are going to sin. None of us have earned our way into heaven. But the more nasty stuff you allow into your heart, the harder it will be to feel God here and now. So in my neighborhood, we've got pretty good neighbors, and the guy who lives right next door to us, he's kind of an older guy. His name is Terry, and he has just a beautiful garden. He's a really nice guy. He loves talking to us, but Terry has this really, really weird habit of like walking away right in the middle of a conversation. And it's not like he's just done with the conversation. He walks away and he still wants to talk to you just from really, really far away. And it kind of drives my dad crazy because as they're talking, Terry will just be like, "Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah." And then at a certain point, he just can't hear at all anymore because he's gone all the way around the side of his house. And my dad doesn't like to be very loud. And so when Terry walks away, my dad just like stops talking and waits for Terry to come back. And pretty much every single conversation that we have with Terry, at some point he'll be like, "What was that?" from really far away. And we're like, "Well, you can't hear us because you went away from us." And there's so many times where in our lives we feel like God isn't there, But let me tell you something. God has not gone anywhere. When we can't feel God or see God or hear God, I think that most of the time it's because we have walked away. We have allowed ourselves to get caught up in stuff that doesn't matter, or worse, stuff that is really bad for our hearts. Sometimes if you're really trying to keep your heart clean, if you're really trying to keep your heart pure, some people might look down on you. There might be a time where, your friends they want to go to see a movie. And when they tell you what movie they want to see, you realize that you really can't go see that movie because it's got lots of bad stuff in it. And they might think, "Oh, well, poor you. You can't see this movie with us and have fun." But Jesus is not saying poor you. Jesus says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." What's more important than that? And so my challenge to you guys today is that you would keep your hearts pure, that you would keep your hearts clean, that you would stay close to God and not wander farther and farther and farther away from Him. Not because God will abandon you if your hearts are not pure, but because I don't want you to abandon God. Does that make sense? The less nasty stuff we allow to live in our hearts, the more clearly we can see God. Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God."
This week, we're in our third week of Advent. Do you remember what the first two candles were for? The first week is for hope. The second week is for love.
And now for the third week, we're going to light the pink candle. It's a different color because we're going to be filled with joy, and pink is a very joyful color. So this candle represents joy. And our beatitude for today is blessed are the pure in heart. Remember what Chloe was talking about, how sometimes we can have maybe walls where we're using things to block our brains or block our ears from listening to God's message for us. Or Douglas was talking about his neighbor that will walk away in the middle of a conversation and miss out on hearing things that God wants him to hear, or miss out on hearing the conversation for Douglas's dad, right? When we are not a full part of God's kingdom, it is really hard for us to find that joy that He wants for us to have. We have a story today about a young man named Desmond who has a sad encounter with some kids in his neighborhood. They call him a really mean name, and it hurts him really deeply. And he has such a hard time forgiving these kids, but he has a heart, he's not able to find the joy and the forgiveness and the mercy and the grace that God calls for him in his own life. It takes him a while, but we're going to hope that Desmond is able to forgive these kids and receive God's joy. Let's listen to this story and see what you all think about it.
Desmond and the Very Mean Word by Archbishop Desmond Tutu and Douglas Carlton Abrams. Desmond was very proud of his new bicycle. He was the only child in the whole township who had one, and he couldn't wait to show it to Father Trevor. Father Trevor was kind and loving, and when he laughed, his eyes sparkled and his whole body shook. Father Trevor didn't care if you were rich or poor, black or white, old or young. He raised his hat and smiled at everyone he met. He especially loved the children and would let them play marbles on the floor of his office, where he met with many important people who came to visit. As Desmond sped down the dirt road, he admired the bicycle's shiny black body and the white stripe on the rear fender. Oh, it was beautiful. When he turned the corner, he saw a gang of boys, and they saw him. They stepped into the road and blocked his path. He didn't dare stop. What if they took his bike? Desmond gripped the handlebars and raced toward the boys, dust flying behind him. The boys scattered out of the way, but the tallest, a red-haired boy, spat out a very mean word. The other boys laughed and shouted the mean word again and again. Desmond pedaled away as fast as he could. His heart pounded and his chest ached. When Desmond got to Father Trevor's office, he threw down his bicycle. His teeth were clenched, and the mean word kept repeating itself over and over inside his head like echoes in a dark cave. Father Trevor looked up as Desmond burst into his office. "What's wrong?" he asked, excusing himself from a meeting. Father Trevor always knew when something was wrong. "Nothing," Desmond said. Father Trevor bent down until he was looking into Desmond's face. His smiling eyes always made you feel like you were the most important person in the world. "You can tell me anything." Desmond glanced down at his dusty bare feet and finally muttered, "Some boys. They shouted a very mean word at me." "I'm sorry that happened," Father Trevor said. "They hurt your feelings, didn't they?" Desmond's shoulders relaxed a little and he nodded. "Can you forgive them?" Father Trevor asked. "No, never," Desmond said, his fists balled at his sides. "I will get them back." Father Trevor sighed. "That is the problem, Desmond. You will get them back, and then they will get you back, and soon our whole world will be filled with nothing but getting backs." That night, Desmond lay in bed trying to read his comic book by candlelight. Instead of the words on the page, he kept seeing the mean word written over and over again. The next day, no matter how fast he pedaled to school, Desmond couldn't leave the mean word behind. All day, the mean word followed him around like a shadow in the hot sun. As he rode home that afternoon, he saw the boys again. His hands and face felt hot. Maybe, he thought, if he got even, he would stop thinking about what they had called him. So he raced past the boys and shouted the meanest word he could think of. He could hear the boys running after him. Desmond pedaled hard, his heart pounding. Finally, he looked back. The boys had given up the chase. At first, Desmond felt proud, but very soon he began to feel something else. It was not a good feeling. The mean word he had said left a bitter taste in his mouth. After school the next day, Desmond went to Father Trevor's. "Are you feeling any better, Desmond?" Father Trevor asked as he sat on the floor shooting marbles with the children. Desmond shook his head from side to side and frowned. "When people say mean words to us, we often feel ashamed of who we are," Father Trevor said. "They can make us feel a little less lovable, but it's not true." Lowering his face close to the floor, Father Trevor lined up a marble in the chalk circle. "Desmond, everything we do matters. If we smile or if we frown, if we say something nice or something mean." Father Trevor flicked the shooter with his thumb and hit the marbles out of the circle. "When we hurt someone," Father Trevor said as he got up, "it hurts us too." That night, Father Trevor dropped in to see Desmond's parents. Desmond carried a pot of tea into the living room and then went outside. Usually, he would try to listen to what the adults were saying, but tonight he just wanted to be alone. Sitting on the doorstep, Desmond looked up at the starry sky, an empty ache in his chest. He thought he could see the mean word written on the face of the moon. "That's a very nice bicycle you have," Father Trevor said as he sat down next to Desmond. The black paint gleamed in the moonlight. Desmond had forgotten to show his bike to Father Trevor. It didn't matter now. He just shrugged and turned his back. He didn't want to talk, not even to Father Trevor. "Still thinking about that mean word?" Father Trevor asked. Desmond slowly nodded. "Our hearts are fragile and easily hurt. This is why we were given a way to heal them. It's called forgiveness." "How can I forgive them? They haven't said they're sorry." "You don't need to wait until someone says they're sorry to forgive them. You have the power to forgive whenever you are ready." "I am not ready," Desmond said. "That's fine, Desmond. Only you will know when you are." Father Trevor got up to leave. Desmond felt a lump in his throat. Father Trevor said very softly, "Let me tell you a secret, Desmond. When you forgive someone, you free yourself from what they have said or done. It's like magic." A week later, Desmond was riding his bicycle down the street when he saw the boy with red hair surrounded by two older boys. "That'll teach you," one of them said, dunking the head of the red-haired boy into a bucket of water. Seconds later, the boy managed to raise his head, his wet hair standing up like a carrot top. He looked like he was about to cry. A woman appeared at the door. "Leave your brother alone. You are as bad as your father. Now get in this house before I—" She didn't finish her sentence before the brothers were inside and the door was slammed shut. To Desmond's surprise, he felt sorry for the red-haired boy. A few days later, Desmond ran into the neighborhood market to buy his father a newspaper. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a flash of red. Turning, Desmond realized it was the red-haired boy. He was standing alone in front of the candy counter. It was filled with lollipops and delicious chocolates. Desmond wanted to say something, but what? Thinking of the mean word he had shouted at the boy, Desmond finally blurted out, "I'm sorry for what I said." The boy looked at him, speechless. Finally, he stammered, I guess well, Desmond didn't need the boy to say he was sorry. It would have been nice, but Father Trevor had said it really wasn't necessary. "I forgive you," Desmond said quietly. As soon as the words were out of his mouth, Desmond felt a little stronger and a little braver and stood up a little taller. After buying the newspaper, Desmond went outside. The red-haired boy was sitting on a milk crate under a shady tree. The boy stood up and moved toward him. Desmond froze. The boy looked around to see if anyone was watching, and then he handed Desmond a piece of candy. For just a moment, Desmond looked into the other boy's eyes and smiled. Then he hurried to get back on his bike, first popping the piece of chocolate in his mouth. As the sun set behind the houses, Desmond pedaled home fast, not out of fear, but out of joy. The cool wind felt good against his face. He wanted the sweet taste of chocolate on his tongue to last forever. Slowly, he spread his arms out wide as if he were flying. At last, Desmond knew what it felt like to be free. It was as if he could embrace the whole world in his outstretched arms. The end.
Thank you so much for joining us this week, Kids Campers. Don't forget to check the description below for links to a coloring page and discussion questions you can do with your family. Until next time, bye!